Okay, so next step in Unit 5 is to talk about farming techniques and sustainability. So we know that farming is essential. How do we make sure that we are not overusing the Earth's resources? We want to be sustainable. All right. So, traditionally, we have relied on what we call monocropping. Monocropping is only growing one single type of crop. So, wheat, as in this picture right here, corn. We know that using monocropping can increase soil infertility. Okay, so we're going to look at different ways to get around that. All right, so right here, this is an example of monocropping. All right, so monocropping is a traditional method in which one type of crop is grown. It leads to soil erosion. Remember, soil moving from place to place. Desertification, meaning the soil is basically non-fertile and it blows away very easily. Think of a desert. Okay, there's no minerals, no nutrients in it. This is soil erosion, desertification, and loss of diversity. So if you look at this type of agriculture, this is something that has to be tilled every single year, okay? And when you're growing the same type of crop, you're using all of these nutrients out of the soil, it can lead to erosion. So the soil has to be tilled, which leads to erosion. Now, if you look at these pictures down here, guys, the first map shows vulnerable regions. So this is vulnerable to desertification. Okay, it should not have two S's, y'all. I just spelled desert, not desert. Okay, vulnerable to desertification. So these places are where we see the highest amounts of, in the United States, where we see the most of our agriculture, which also is putting that soil more at risk of becoming desert-like. So also you can see in parts of Africa, a lot of it is desert. So we don't want to end up having desert-like soil. And it's already happened in the United States. It has happened with the Dust Bowl. And I know that you guys learned about this in history. Okay? The Dust Bowl was a massive natural disaster that occurred in the United States. And it was because of over-farming. People were not taking care of the land. They weren't farming properly. And so it caused the soil to become like a desert. So the Dust Bowl. Oh, give me 1 second. Let me pause. Okay, sorry guys, I got interrupted, but I'm back. So, the Dust Bowl was caused by desertification. Okay. Which was caused by overuse of the soil. All right. We don't ever want to overuse the soil to a point to where it can't grow anything. So this is why we use these new techniques. Okay. So let's look at what these are. So again, traditionally we've used monocropping. We know that monocropping doesn't work. So these new techniques are meant to increase soil fertility. That way, we don't have to worry about depleting the soil. Okay? Now, this first one right here is called intercropping. In intercropping, we are using 2 or more species planted at the same time. Now, I want you to think back to the first semester when we talked about the nitrogen cycle. Yeah, I know there's lots has happened since then, and I just want to refamiliarize you guys with that. So remember that there were some plants that fixed nitrogen into the soil. Okay, they had the nodules on their roots. What's great about intercropping is that you can use one plant that fixes nitrogen, and you can grow it alongside another plant that consumes the oxygen. So it's like a give and take. Okay, so we can use, there we go, use a nitrogen fixing plant with one that does not. Okay. All right, our second one is contour plowing. So if you look at the picture, you can see that the ground has been plowed in kind of a weird pattern. And the reason we do this is to prevent erosion. So if you have land that is sloped like this, okay, you don't want to plant rows that are straight across. If you plant rows that are straight across, you're definitely going to have erosion. So contour plowing plows with the curve of the land, okay? And what this does is it prevents soil erosion. So we have plowing and harvesting parallel to the land to prevent erosion. Okay? Sorry, all my social media is exploding. Just ignore all those chimes. Okay. The last one, the third type we have is agroforestry. So look at the picture, y'all. Trees, plants. Agroforestry. Okay? So this is a type of intercropping with vegetables. So you have trees grown with vegetable plants. Okay? It's a perfect scenario. Now, another new technique that I didn't put a picture on here for because there's really not a way you can describe this in pictures. Okay? But this is definitely on the AP test, and I might venture to say that your FRQ on your test next week will be about this topic. Okay? So, a fourth new technique we have is what's called IPM. IPM stands for Integrated Pest Management. Okay? The goal is to minimize controlled pests because obviously they're going to damage crops. IPM uses an integrated method to try to do that. The goal of IPM is to reduce fertilizer usage. Because we know that there are some bad side effects to human health and the environment from fertilizer usage. So we want to reduce fertilizer usage to control pests. Okay? What this relies on is using natural predators of those pests. So it uses natural predators. And it reduces risk to human health, and environment. Okay. All right, so now let's look at two methods that have been used for a long time as well. Okay, clear cutting and slash and burn. So I know that you guys have learned about slash and burn probably in your history classes. I might venture to say that you've learned about it in your AP HUG class that you took as freshmen. So with clear cutting, obviously this is not an ideal situation. So these trees are being harvested for building materials, for paper, whatever, okay? So this is basically removal of an entire forest. Now, what are some bad side effects to this? Well, there's lots, and I'm sure you guys could come up with a bunch right now. So, let me scoot this down a little bit. Okay, so, it can produce profits, which is, typically the bottom line for companies. They want profits. It can produce profits, but there's lots of environmental damage. It leads to soil erosion. Think about that video you guys watched where the guy was pouring the water onto the grass. What was happening to the soil? It was not moving. It was kept in place. That's what we want to have happen. We don't want soil going around everywhere. Okay? So it can lead to soil erosion. It can also lead to increased soil temperatures, which is bad for plant growth, okay? And flooding. We definitely don't want that. Now, why do we need to have forests? Obviously, they're a very large carbon sink. They can absorb tremendous amounts of carbon from the atmosphere, okay? So, forests can absorb pollutants. It can absorb pollutants and store CO2, carbon dioxide. And this is what we call sustainable forestry. Okay? All right, now with slash and burn, this is a short-term fix. This is a short-term solution. We want to get the soil more nutrients, more hardy again. Well, then you burn the life that's there and those nutrients go back to the soil, but it's a short-term thing. You cannot do this forever because it will also cause desertification. So this is what happens. A forest area is cut down. And the remaining vegetation is burned. Okay. Again, it does create nutrient-rich soil, but it's only temporary. So it does create nutrient-rich soil, but is damaging to the environment. Again, guys, when you burn stuff, all that carbon goes into the atmosphere, and who's going to absorb it if there are no trees around? Also, when you burn stuff, it creates particulate matter, which we inhale. Okay, so we will continue on with crop rotation in the next video.